The first in this series of short videos described the perilous time for Confederate cavalryman Jeb Stuart and his men at a seldom used river crossing. The second video of this series covered from September 22nd through September 28, 1862 in Jefferson County, then Virginia, from the viewpoints of heroes von Borck and George Neese, two Confederate cavalrymen, and Charles Fuller, a private from upstate New York who was on picket near Harper's Ferry. This, the third of the series, covers the Jefferson County home front through September-October 1862, a brief, complex time characterized by local soldiers grabbing a quick visit home, continued care for wounded in churches, homes, and barns for roughly 7,000 wounded men all across the county and region, the destruction of railroads by Confederates, intermittent federal incursions into the county that were met with counterattacks by the Confederate cavalry pickets. When there was peace, it was readily embraced and enjoyed by all. As Cavalryman and County native John Opie wrote, "To say that the soldiers enjoyed this long period of rest during the delightful fall of 1862, after the arduous campaign through which we had passed, hardly expresses it."
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears, while we all sup sorrow with the poor.
Abner Hard from Illinois found Colonel William McGill of the 1st Georgia Regulars at a house 2 miles from Shepherdstown. He wrote, "A few miles further on at a farmhouse, we found Colonel McGill and other rebel officers suffering from severe wounds. The colonel had an arm amputated at the shoulder, which, for the want of proper care, was alive with maggots. After dressing their wounds, we learned that the colonel had been educated at West Point and was a classmate of General Pleasanton. Fanny Aglenby and her son Frank continued to spend long days caring for wounded at their Elk Branch Church in Duffields. They were assessing also the $1,475 in damage done to their farm and property located where the Battle of Shepherdstown was fought just a few days before. Dr. Mason in Charlestown had given one of the Ambler girls $50 in gold to buy drugs in Baltimore, which she carried back and safely through the federal pickets at Harper's Ferry, well hidden in her hoops." Christine Fouke, one wrote, "stood out as the Florence Nightingale of this county," and her nieces brought her buttermilk for soldiers at the Carter House Hotel and at Mr. Edward Campbell's drugstore in Charlestown. John Fairbairn of the 3rd South Carolina Regiment wrote her the 24th of June, 1863, "Probably you have forgotten me, but I have never forgotten you and the numbers of people in your kind town. I was in the room at Carter House as you go in, entrance from the front. I sat in an armchair day and night, and I'm tendering you the sincerest thanks for your kindness to me and to the noble lady who gave me a bottle of Wister's balsam of wild cherry for my cough. Also Miss Straith, the daughter of Dr. Straith. I believe candidly that to you and to her I owe my present existence." Fairbairn, sadly, would be killed the following year, July 2nd, at Gettysburg. The Edgehill Cemetery stone for Lieutenant Gill of North Carolina is for a man cared for by the Griggs family in their house then on the site of today's Wright Denny School. After he died from wounds and Miss Griggs wrote his family, his sister Pamela Gill wrote Miss Griggs from Henderson, North Carolina, October 20, 1862. Mother still feels unequal to the task of writing, and therefore begged me to write and try to tell you how grateful she was that her darling had met with such kindness at your hands. A ghastly account of the Charlestown family of Mrs. Graham Wilson concerning James Timberlake, who was brought wounded to Charlestown. A Mrs. Forrest was nursing him. After his wound was dressed, she sat by him, a lamp nearby throwing light on his bed. During the night, she saw blood spurt high in the air from his wound. There was no time to get a doctor, so she sat the rest of the night with her thumb in the broken artery. She saved his life, but some years later he died from the effects of his war experiences. A Mrs. Lefevre went as a girl with her mother carrying food to the old Methodist church in Charlestown. Andrew Selden carried luxuries with his grandmother for those in the little one-story brick building adjoining the old Bank of Charlestown, the boardroom, and watched the removal of a man's leg as he lay motionless on the board table. Middleway's old brick building at the corner of Grace and Queen Street was where the doctors Man Page Nelson, Samuel Scully, S.A. Bates, and William O. McCutry attended for endless hours the sick and wounded. Two never left. Boone Dew and a Captain Johnson have their stones in the Episcopal Church Cemetery near the entrance. On a lighter note, in Shepherdstown, a half-starved soldier sat down to dine at a home on North Princess Street. He looked at what was on his plate and exclaimed in a drawl, "Well, gol darn you, Mr. Hogjaw, I'd knowed you'd anywhere, even if you were in your Sunday suit." To Henrietta Lee, recovered soldier Tom Barlow wrote from Richmond, "It was indeed with sad hearts that we parted with you all to whose kindness we owe so much." Henrietta Lee wrote Ida Rust October 3rd, "Oh, how many desolate homes, orphan children, and widowed mothers has this vile and cruel, oppressive war caused." Felix Warren wrote to the ladies of Shepherdstown, "May the blessings of an unseen hand upon this place attend, for they indeed have proved to us to be the soldier's friend. Fathers, mothers, sisters dear, for us count do not more, for they have eased our painful wounds whilst weltering in our gore." About 39 men from Jefferson County homes were present for duty and well positioned while their commander rested, to visit in the fall of 1862 their own homes where they may have had a good meal, a hug, and a kiss from a sweetheart. 24 of them were William Butler, William H. Engel, Edward Lawrence Hensel, Mason Marshall, John Frederick Keplinger, George F. Burke, George Henry Kimes, John Newton Kimes, Charles Henry Knott, John J. Lemon, Thomas T. Lemon, Willoughby N. Lemon, Robert Ryan Lucas, James Mason Marshall, Phineas Patrick Marshall, William A. Morgan, David H. Myers, John W. Myers, Robert Louis Osborne, Nathaniel Height Willis, James Turo Shepard, James Ephraim Watson, John J. Watson, and Mayberry Goheen Small. All that remained between the greatest pleasure, a month at the Bower for Stuart's headquarters staff, or some run-ins with some riding for hot leather bluecoats.